New York is great because New York actually has the New York Department of Cultural Affairs has a larger budget than the National Endowment of the Arts.
This is the Arts Academy Podcast, episode 116, How to Secure Grants for Your Arts Projects. I just want to welcome everybody to the Arts Academy. I'm Dean Victor Varnado. I am here with the fabulous Suzette Simon. Hello.
Student in the building. Happy to be here. Class has begun.
So right now, you run an organization called New York Labs, right? And it's
Yeah.
a nonprofit. And what it does is it gives free
Comedy programming.
free comedy
And
programming
the,
to New Yorkers. And then this started
it was,
as you performing on the subway.
yeah, it was very selfish desire.
You went from you performing on the subway and then in the park for free to now you're talking about New York Labs, which is, partially funded by the city of New York
Yeah.
and is like, you know, has a lot more resources than you started with. Like, what was the first step?
Yeah. So the first step actually was when I saw that this could be great, I decided to just try to become a nonprofit. But the paperwork, I'm a little like, who knows paperwork? Like, really? So what I did was I went to idealist.org, which is a great site, and I just posted, like, I was looking for a lawyer that could help us file for our paperwork. And I did find someone. It was a lawyer who needed pro bono hours, and it took about a year. And so once I got the nonprofit paperwork, then it became the journey to get credentialed, meaning and respected. So that became like writing grants. So our first grant that I wrote to was the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council. And in New York City, what happens, New York is great because New York actually has the New York Department of Cultural Affairs has a larger budget than the National Endowment of the Arts.
Mhm.
So if you aren't like as advanced enough to sort of tackle their grant parameters, they have what they call regranters, and there are other organizations that will help like you as a fledgling artist, so that you don't need as many things to qualify. You are able to get they also offer like counseling in order to how to write the grant and budgets and stuff like that. So in there are 5 out of New York City Department of Cultural Affairs has 5 arts councils. And
Mhm.
so the arts council that I applied to was the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council. And so I went to their seminars. Yeah, and we got approved for a grant. The money isn't great, but at least it's something. I think the max you can get out of the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council is like 16,000 for state and city, but there are different requirements. And but I think other arts council is a little bit different, the figures. But yeah, but at least it was something, and also legitimized us. So once you're legitimized, then you can go out and try to find sponsors. Like, "Hey, I got this grant from the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council. Like, it says that what I'm doing is art, and then I'm serving the city of New York, and I'm serving people, and I'm enriching New York lives. So can you also, like, sponsor us?" So I tried to do sponsorship, and I'm just terrible at sponsorship. But as I did and I'm still terrible at sponsorship. Like,
That's actually something that I can help you with because I'm not bad at sponsorship.
oh, really? Okay, great.
Yep,
So,
I would totally help you.
okay,
Yeah.
great. So as we progressed, I kept getting the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council grant, and I would apply to other grants and get other grants. And so it just helped. And then, I would also send out press releases, and the New York Times would come out, and it's just the legitimizing what we do helps to get more money.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Well, there's a couple of things that I'm actually really interested in that you mentioned, which is idealist.org. So you said that when you started out, you had the idea to make it into a nonprofit, and then you went out and started submitting for grants, and you got a grant, and you used that to legitimize yourself and to just get more. But then one of the things that you talked about was idealist.org, where you started out. Can you tell people what that is? Because I've never heard of it. So,
Oh, yeah, it's great, and it still exists. It's a website, and it's for anyone that wants any sort of, like, relevance in the social impact world. So,
mhm.
if you want a job, you can go there, like, within the social impact world, there are nonprofits that post there. If you are looking for help, like volunteers and stuff like that, for your nonprofit, you can go and post it on idealist.org. If you have something within the realm of social impact, then that's the site. There's also, and I also posted on there's volunteers, I think, volunteer.org or something like that. So I posted on that as well. I'm not quite sure. It's like it's a volunteer something. If you Google it, you'll find it's a really big nonprofit as well. But there are other nonprofits too that you can try to find help through. There's a volunteer lawyer for the arts as well. You can try to see if you can get a lawyer that way. And then there's also that's all I can think of right now. But it's just finding what you can find on the internet to try to. And I mean, you can also be bold and go directly to a law firm and say, do you have any lawyers that need pro bono hours? And, this is what we do. And, you know, that's now that looking back, I was like, I could have been bold and done that. So,
Well, yeah, but you didn't know that then. You didn't
yeah,
know that then. But I mean, that's actually I think what's going to be good about this because I think people are going to listen to this, and if they were thinking about like trying to work with the city somewhere or work with the government in any way with their art, like I mean, they can see a clear path like how you like plotted it out, and then eventually, I mean, I know it wasn't that easy, but but I'm just saying that, but you've kind of like drawn a path where someone else could like even you know replicate something like this for themselves in their own cities.
yeah. And there's also sponsors too, like fiscal sponsors. Like are if your organization is working, but you don't have the 501(c)(3), you can apply to a fiscal sponsor. One of the biggest ones is the field.org.
Mhm.
And, you can apply, and so what happens is you then submit for grants, and you have to also allocate more time for your grant process because the team needs to also look at your grant as well. And then once you submit your grant, then they get like a 5% or 10% administrative fee. There's a certain amount that's legally binding, so it's not like all of a sudden it's like, we're taking 25% and your your little pinky.
Got it.
You sell for, your soul, something. But, yeah, so if you even don't wanna go that route, you can work with fiscal sponsors that will oversee the technicality of having all of that paperwork that you need in place. So if you wanted to get going and you don't have your 501(c)(3) yet, you can work with these, like, they're called fiscal sponsors, and you can Google them.
Mm.
And the thing is, you have to also think about what kind of art you're doing because somebody wanted us to fiscal sponsor them for a grant for a film, but the thing is, like, I'm not in the film business.
Mhm.
I know nothing about film. Yeah, yeah, I can like, you can use my 501(c) and I can be an administrator, but I'm not really helping you, like, you should try to find fiscal sponsors that are in your field because they know the grant process, they know the language and vocabulary is very important in grants, and 'cause your jury panel is your peers in that field, and so they have to understand that you know what you're doing because 'cause they're giving you public funding. They don't wanna know that, like, "Oh, I got my iPhone yesterday, and I just wanna take random shots of, like, pigeons in the park," and I think that that's relative something that New Yorkers can have never seen another side of pigeons in the park. So you have to, like, really find like, the field is very diverse, but there are other regranters too, like, that specifically focus on, like, supporting filmmakers and supporting, digital art and supporting, performance art and supporting, you know, other kinds of art. So, it's really also just be aware of that too, and don't just sort of jump on and glom on, like, the first opportunity to get a fiscal sponsor, but just also be, like, you know, very methodical about who you're working with and what you're gonna get out of it, because that really matters in your grant process that you're speaking the language of the jurors.
Okay, well then, this is all great information, and I think that I learned to, also part of this is selfish because I also have NYC talent show that I do, and I want to get it involved with the arts in New York in some way too, with the government arts money in New York in some way. So this is also great for me too. But I think this is great for everybody because I think there's like a lot of people out there who just don't know how to even approach like arts and money that is available to help them out. Just in general, I think that a lot of people don't even know about it.
Yeah, and
So this is
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and even with the Department of Cultural Affairs, there's something called the city council funding, which is, like, funding that you get from your city council member for the arts, and so what you can do is you have to set up some kind of meeting. It's better to set up I mean, you can do the application and check off the council member and hope that they will read what you're trying to do, but it's better that if you sort of explain what you're trying to do and you can talk to the council member about, like, getting funding. The minimum that you can get is $5,000 for, like, an event in their council district. So that's the only limitation is that, and I haven't been able to break through, and I'm trying to, like, sort of talk to council members about something that is citywide funding, like, like, going through the speaker or going through the mayor. So there are times I've thought that that was kinda conveyed, and then it turns out that, "Oh, no, this is sort of, like, very limited to this council member's, um, area." So I'm being more diligent and aggressive about that this year because, once you get the funding, then you have to go to that council member's area and then produce whatever you're gonna produce in that area, and then it becomes a matter of resources, like, I still haven't, this isn't a full-time job, so, like, getting funding from a council member that's, like, way out in Brooklyn or way out in Staten Island or way out in some other parts of the city just becomes a logistical challenge because it's also finding the space, traveling out there on my days off, finding the space, also making sure that the budget includes transportation for the comedians because I don't want them to get lost. I don't want them to get frustrated because it's another part of the city that, that maybe doesn't have transportation to. So yeah, so I have to figure that becomes another like piece of the puzzle. But there's this Department of Culture Affairs funding, and then through the Department of Culture Affairs, there's this city council funding. But also be aware with city council funding too, with the arts that like, there are park initiatives too where you can produce things in parks, and that will go through the parks department, but if you are working on an arts project, you wanna tell the council member to make sure, and you wanna check off that, make sure that your funding goes through the Department of Cultural Affairs and not the Parks Department. Because any other agency outside of arts will give you funding as a reimbursable thing.
Uh,
Yeah, but arts will give you 80% of the funding upfront, and then 20% once you have, like, submitted that you've done this project, that you've accomplished it. And if you don't accomplish it, then you owe them the 80% that they gave you of the funding. And you have to also submit that you did it in the council member's area, that you promised that you would do it, that you were given money for and stuff like that. So
yeah,
that
I did one project like that at one point where I basically threw a party, an art party in Queens, and it was like $5,000 they gave me as budget, and they gave me 4,000 up front, and then once I sent them like, video, a report, then they gave me another $1,000.
but that's great. So then, yes, you've done the system then, that's great.
Yeah, on very small scale, but yes, definitely. Actually, I've done it on a larger scale. I got a grant for the National Science Foundation for the accessibility technology that I made, but that is also like they give you most of the money up front and then a little bit at the end once you turn in your final report and it's approved.
Awesomeness, yeah.
Same thing. So, last question though. Here it is. And you've been great. And thank you so much for being here. And you've been dropping like so much hot fire as far as information. I said hot fire very, very well. Pretty hip. Anyway, so lastly, you what it like, what's your pie in the sky version of where New York Laughs is going to be? Like, what are you still trying to achieve? Where are you still trying to go?
World domination!
Seems unlikely.
I don't know. What I want and pine for and hope for is I want, like, a significant comedy festival that's free, and I want it to be, like, transformative for New York. I want, like, every borough involved. I want to be able to have it, like, generate economic success for New Yorkers. I wanted to also generate like cultural success. I wanted to help to move the comedy community forward. I wanted to be a global like uh destination for comedy fans. Yeah, I just want to make New York the center of comedy as it should be.
Awesome. Sounds dope. That sounds amazing.
I did part of it. I did a kernel of it. I did, as you were part of, the comedy festivals, but I want it to be bigger. I want more experimental stuff and opportunities for all kinds of artists to perform comedy and stand-up comedy, and for the city to be a happier place from it.
Amazing. Well, I think that if I can help in any way, which is with sponsors maybe, then it can help you achieve it because it sounds awesome.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Victor.
All
Okay,
right.
great.
Thanks a lot. That's Arts Academy, everybody. We'll see you later. Check us out at altartsacademy.com and artsacademypodcast.com.
Yay!
Dunzo.
Thank you.